There are very few stories that have been put on film or video as many times as Cinderella. There is the Disney cartoon, 1950. There are count them, three versions of the Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella. Julie Andrews, Leslie Ann Warren, and more recently Brandy with Whitney Houston as the fairy godmother. If you want a more realistic, down-to-earth Cinderella, there is the Sherman Brothers' fabulous adaptation, The Slipper and the Rose. If you're looking for a gender bender, go with Cinderella with Jerry Lewis. And now comes...
And if you want a dark version from 2015, there's Kenneth Branagh's with Kate Blanchett as the stepmother and Lily James as Cinderella.
And you can even see a condensed version in Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods. Now comes the version that, to me, would have been the one Gloria Steinem would have done if she had been producing this in the 70s. So this is an up-to-date, modern Cinderella, but to me it feels very dated, not necessarily in the concept that it presents, but in the way it presents it. Now, it starts off looking like a typical Cinderella. You have this beautiful Technicolor village. You have this poor girl living with her stepmother and her stepsisters. You have the prince, and basically it looks like a typical Cinderella. But here's where things differ again. The Cinderella wants to be a dress designer, and she appears to be quite good at it. But here's the problem. Women aren't allowed to go into business in this kingdom, which is kind of a shame because every man in this film, especially Pierce Brosnan as the king, is portrayed as a moron. The prince is a party boy. There's someone who delivers groceries or something to the stepmother, and he's got to be the most undesirable man in the kingdom, but yet the stepmother says, well, maybe I should marry one of my daughters off to him. It's not a great situation.
Well, the one male who's great, of course, is not playing a male role, and that's Billy Porter, who plays the fabulous godmother.
I am your fabulous godmother. Do you want to go to that ball and meet a bunch of rich people who will change your life?
Yes, I was just crying and singing about it like 2 minutes ago.
Billy Porter is one of the high points of the show, but he's only there for one scene.
But it's quite a scene.
Yeah, it is. He is fabulous. Not quite as fabulous as Whitney Houston was when she played the role, but pretty fabulous.
I think he'd even admit that.
I'm sure he would. And you have Doc Brown as the town crier. Did I mention this is a musical? And he announces everything in rap, and that's one of the musical highs. The other musical high is Idina Menzel as the evil stepmother. She has this wonderful version of Material Girl, Look Out Madonna. She has another number, and she almost makes you feel sorry for the stepmother. You understand the method to the madness, but sorry, stepmother, you're still a wicked, rhymes with witch.
I think when you said feminist, you didn't quite get the fact that this is a very feminist film. It even allows the evil stepmother, quote, to have humanity and we learn why she's who she is, which is not done very often. That's to the credit of Kay Cannon, who was the writer-director of this film, as well as the Pitch Perfect films, which I never particularly cared for, but there was a lot of singing in those. This is a jukebox musical for the most part. There's very little original music, but what there is, as you say, there's some interesting stuff. You mentioned Camila Cabello. Right. Nicholas Galitzine is the prince. Very pretty to look at. I mean, that's kind of what the role calls for. Well, and then there's the the ubiquitous James Corden playing one of the mice, the little pudgy one,
who obviously comes to life as a coachman. Apparently, you and I missed it, but I assume there's a law that's passed that, with the exception of Schmigadoon, you cannot do a new musical on film without James Corden. I don't quite understand why.
But I'll bet it's a really good contract.
Maybe it has to do with the fact that he's one of the producers of this production. I don't know.
Yeah, you think maybe?
But now here is what I didn't like about it. I know I liked Camila Cabello, except when she was singing. And I know, and she's a Grammy-winning pop singer, but I was not very impressed with either the vocal quality of her numbers or the songs that she wrote. In fact, with the exception of the rapping and Idina Menzel, I was not impressed with any of the musical numbers. Camila does sing better than Pierce Brosnan, but that's about as good as I'm going to get.
No, not only is she a Grammy, she got to me, and I'm an old lady, but she got to me with her Havana, the song that goes Havana, na, na. I will spoil it if I try to sing it, but it bounces, and it was just, and the video, you got to watch that, Charlie, so you'll know what her real capability is. She may not have been the greatest on these songs. I loved her. This is reimagining Cinderella. I call it Cinderella 2.0.
Here's where I really just took issue with the show. She wants to be a dress designer, and that's fine. Seems to me, we're talking about empowerment. It seems to me she'd be much more empowered than a queen, but all right, that's her dream. But just the way they approached it, having the prince say, okay, I'll give up my kingdom for you, having every man
it's a fairy tale
in the kingdom, portrayed as an idiot. It just, to me, it honestly, it felt dated.
It's supposed to feel dated. It's a fairy tale. It takes place in like 1322 or whenever Charles Perrault wrote it. Charles Perrault was the author. I needed this. It's a little ray of sunshine. And that's what I needed, because it's been very dark and very dank, and I've been very low. So I'm really happy to have a little, if you want to call it proto-feminist, that's fine with me. I was glad to see. I think it's a very good role model for girls. I don't think girls should want to be the queen. I think you should want to have their own dress store. That's what I think.
Well, she doesn't even get her own dress store. She ends up working for another queen.
We don't know what that's going to lead to.
Well,
that could lead to dress stores all over
maybe it will, maybe it won't. But it seems to me she turned down the second in command role for essentially middle management.
But the princess got
conclusion.
That.
All right, your conclusion.
The princess got that. She was great. She was smart and funny, and she wanted to be that. Okay. So
my conclusion, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did.
But frankly, with all the versions of Cinderella out there, I just think you can do better. And that is our review, and we'll see you
in the critic circle.
Cinderella, you don't need to go to the ball.
Please, stepmother, I spent weeks making this dress. My future depends on it. Oh, look at that. This is different.
Okay, Dad. You said you wanted to be a businesswoman.
The world's half asleep. It's gonna wake up and sing.
They're glass. Any way you can make them more comfortable?
No.
But you just did a whole thing.
Even magic has its limits.